Welcome back to Brain Ablaze, a weekly podcast about epilepsy, by people with epilepsy, for everyone. I'm David Clifford.
Wow, did you hear that?
Hear what?
They changed the tagline. He used to say, about epilepsy, by people with epilepsy, for people with epilepsy, blah, blah, blah.
Oh yeah.
In this episode, we welcome you to the second season of our show and drop a few hints on what's coming up next. If you're new to Brain Ablaze, I just want to state that I'm not a medical expert. I'm just someone that has struggled with the ins and outs of epilepsy for almost 3 decades. For those of you that are new to the show, we wish you a warm, hearty welcome. For you longtime listeners, thank you for continuing to support us. I talked to a few of you over the break and quickly realized that some of you thought that this episode was going to start with something like this.
I'm pretty tired. Think I'll go home now.
No, we wouldn't just stop this like that. We just took a short break so we could spend the holidays with our families and determine what our show was going to cover in 2021. To all the people that have contacted us to give us ideas about episodes, we surely thank you. You gave us some really great ideas and sparked our imagination. We are continuing our mission. Raising epilepsy awareness at a grand scale looks deceptively simple, maybe even inviting. But after this first year of the Brain Ablaze experiment, we have found that it's incredibly difficult, nearly impossible. One of the major goals of Brain Ablaze is to build a repository of information to help people adapt to their seizures as quickly as possible. The hope is that this repository is written in a way that everyone, not just doctors, can understand. This repository is complementary to the existing treatments and information on the internet, but focuses on the adaptation process from the aspect of the patient rather than the medical provider. After all, we are people with epilepsy. While doctors might know how to categorize and prevent seizures, we are the ones with the knowledge on how to live with seizures. Studies have estimated that 1% of the population of the world currently has epilepsy. That is an estimated 50 million people worldwide. It is also estimated that 1 out of 26 people will have epilepsy, and 1 in a whopping 10 will have a seizure sometime in their lifetime. That is a huge number. It's impossible for us to reach everyone. Last season, Brain Ablaze focused on building our podcast, YouTube channel, store, and community on Twitter. We appreciate all of your support and guidance since our inception. We've had questions from so many of you asking why we are not on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, or a host of other platforms.
Who even uses LinkedIn to learn about epilepsy anyway?
We've made the decision, though, to focus our attention on creating a great experience on a few platforms rather than doing a terrible job on all platforms. We are still a small group of volunteers. The hope is we provide enough information so you can start teaching those around you. We would love to see you taking what you have learned from us, add your own flair, and push your own creation to the world on a platform of your choice. We will support you in any way you think we can. Hopefully by increasing epilepsy awareness together, we can raise the tide for all of our ships.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you used the raise the tide metaphor.
Quite frankly, without you, this project to raise epilepsy awareness is just dead in the water. We can't be everywhere all the time, but you can. A host of complexities in raising epilepsy awareness comes from the fact that the problem is so very diverse. It is impossible to make generalities about seizures. There are more than 40 types of seizures and a host of other conditions that mimic epilepsy. Because the origination of a seizure can be anywhere in the brain, it means that what I feel when I have a seizure is not at all what you feel. Last season, we did a great job of covering a lot of things that we all share. For example, triggers, advocacy, sleep, memory, status epilepticus, SUDEP, neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, stigma, and of course, interacting with our medical team. Last season, we also covered a ton of stuff that is really specific to just a subset of our community. For example, cerebral palsy, traumatic brain injuries, and functional or dissociative seizures. Unfortunately, we've also found that most members of our wider epilepsy community really only want to hear about their class of seizures and have little patience to learn about the others. That makes sense though, right? If we're trying to learn about a condition we personally have, we're going to start with the symptoms we currently see. This season, we're going to continue to diversify to include as many people with seizures and epilepsy as possible. We're going to have specific episodes targeted for different stages of the epilepsy adaptation process. The advice that we give to each stage is going to be different, of course. It is impossible to target all the stages all the time. Last season, the podcast had a tendency to target an audience that had epilepsy for a long time. And that's my fault, because I've had epilepsy for a long time. And that's just wrong. Moving forward, we will continue to support those of us with intractable or medically resistant epilepsy. But shouldn't we also include everyone else? When one is first faced with seizures, there are plenty of questions. We need to help them by walking through the basics. As one progresses through the process of finding and possibly failing medications, a whole host of other questions explode onto the scene. An estimated 70% of us can control their seizures through medication alone. While their seizures may be under control, they still face a lot of issues we all do. For example, minding our triggers, side effects of medication, and insomnia. Shouldn't we also give advice to them too? Another way our community is diverse is just our age. Epilepsy can affect anyone starting at any age. It is impossible to give advice without thinking of the age at which epilepsy starts. I'm middle-aged.
Oh, wow. I bet that hurt.
Yeah, like a sucker punch.
Last season, I had a tendency to narrow the podcast focus to give advice to people only within my age group. Parents with young children need advice from other parents. Adolescents need advice from adolescents. And our most experienced members of our community need advice from other people like themselves.
Tell them about the news.
Yeah, tell about the news.
I have some great news. I want to congratulate Joan McKenzie. She has been a tremendous help since the beginning of Brain Ablaze. She's contributed at multiple levels, her blog entries, the podcast, and our Twitter community. She has volunteered to officially continue to perform a role that she has been doing for months. Editor here at Brain Ablaze. Just like many of you, Jo has faced epilepsy for most of her life while running through the seizure gauntlet. In a pre-pandemic world, we thought if people just knew about epilepsy and our challenges that our community faces, they would be compelled to learn about us on their own. Maybe it would drive someone to understand their individual risks of seizures, perhaps even to turn them to advocate for epilepsy rights as well. If we could only reach them, they would understand. 2020 taught us there are some people who will defy the public good even when gifted with the best information about the subject by experts in the field. Now, we hope the population that think like this is very small, but in light of recent events, it seems like we have sorely miscalculated their numbers. That's another reason why Brain Ablaze's mission is so critical. Our community at best is 1% of the population. We are the underdogs. We need to find help where we can. If we can reach the millions of people outside of our community that do empathize with our situation, we can all pull together to form an alliance against the dark forces that truly believe that ignorance is bliss. We would love to hear any of your comments or questions regarding this or any of our other episodes. You can always reach out to us via email at social@brainablaze.com or on Twitter @brainablaze. And if you like this episode, consider subscribing or even helping us by providing a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you download your content. We really do appreciate it. One small click really does help. See you next time.